And we're on the air. I'd like to say hello to everybody. Thank you for coming out, and thanks for tuning in. Tonight's kind of an interesting show. It's a continuation of something that Fear Porn Propaganda, aka Wisecraft, and aka Conspiracy. I like to just call him Steve for short. But anyway, he's joining me as my co-host tonight with a very special guest who likes to be called the Gematrinator or Gematrinator. That's it. And you can also call him Derek. Derek, would you like to say hello?
Well, hello, everybody, and thank you, Robert, for having me on the show. I very well appreciate it, and look forward to spreading the good word of Gematria here tonight.
Well, Conspiracy or Steve or whatever we call that guy. Last time we finished off. Okay, let's give Steve a chance to say hello. Go ahead, Steve.
Hello. Hey, everyone. Thanks for having me on again.
We had an interesting banter back and forth regarding Gematria, where he was basically introducing the concept to me and to other viewers and listeners out there here. And well, we covered something that you built, and it was the Gematrinator calculator. It was an interesting concept, and it was able to calculate out very, very intriguing aspects of this numerology field. Now, in your words, could you break down what gematria is?
Yeah, absolutely. So I didn't know anything about Gematria until I started searching for truth. This all began in mid-2015 when my suspicions about these mass shootings started to kind of reach a boiling point. Things didn't look natural to me, particularly the Charleston church shooting. And I came across videos claiming that Sandy Hook was fake, and I thought, wow, people still think Sandy Hook is a hoax. This is crazy. Like, I'm going to find proof that it happened and make these people look stupid. And, I was aware that 9/11 was an inside job. Like, I had reached a certain level of understanding with conspiracies in this country and what's really happening. But
Absolutely.
nowhere did I think that news stories were being faked altogether. That was well over my head. So after about 2 or 3 days, it pretty much dawned on me that, holy crap, Sandy Hook didn't happen. There's really no evidence of anything happening. And that just kind of started a whole spiral for me. And one of the truth channels I came across when digging was Zachary K. Hubbard, who was teaching this gematria numerology. And there was something different about his channel than a lot of the other channels I was watching, which mostly spoke about gun control and how they're going to take our guns. I didn't ever feel like, the gun control angle, even though I do believe that that is the ultimate goal, it's not something that's going to happen anytime soon, as far as people taking our guns away, but it is a concern that we should still have.
Just to interject, I mean, there's only one reason that they would want to take the guns away from us in the first place, and that would be simply to make sure that they had the power over us. But
right. And
it's neither here nor there, but I'm just saying.
And one could make an argument that they have the power over us, even though we have guns. I mean, you look at some of the weaponry they're stocking, but they don't want to have to use it. And it's a lot easier to have people who, especially those who disagree with the government and don't like some of the policies. We've seen efforts to build databases.
It's easier for people to give away their shit willingly rather than to take it away from them. If you can somehow coerce somebody into giving something away willingly, then they would have no real reason to pull out all their bag of tricks, and then right. The jig would be up. Then everybody would see that now there's a war going on, and you know what I mean. Then it becomes a battlefield, and then it becomes crazy. But anyway, I'm sorry. Go on. Continue, please.
Your point is true, though, because that's why we see these false flag operations, and people often ask, why would they go through all this effort to fake it? Well, it's so that eventually people will give up their guns. And just listen to a lot of the students now, the younger generation that's living through the trauma of seeing a school shooting every other week. A lot of these kids are like, what's the point of guns? They don't understand it. Yeah. And, they're not getting the proper education, and that's a big part of the problem. So anyway, I was following Zach Hubbard's channel, and like I said, it was just something different about it. And come to realize over the long term that it's because he's legitimately trying to spread truth and and discover as much as he can. And so eventually I realized there was something to it. It didn't take much to convince me that there was something to the standard basic gematria. I mean, I felt like numbers were always important. I knew 9/11 happened on the 9/11 date for a specific reason. I just didn't know what that reason was. And so here on this channel, I was learning something in addition to hearing what I wanted to hear about these false flag operations, knowing that they were an inside job and whatnot.
Right.
So this all came to a head in 2016. Looking at the upcoming World Series with the Cubs and Indians, and through a number of hints in the media, whether it was news stories or even in sports. For instance, we had these two tie NFL games on the same day.
And which year was this?
This was like the 2016 season, around
2016,
September, October.
okay.
And the last time there were two ties in an NFL season were like immediately after the Cleveland Indians lost in Game 7 to the Florida Marlins. Long story short, I was able to predict pretty much exactly what was going to happen in Game 7 of the World Series, even down to who would score the winning run, which was Kyle Schwarber.
Right.
At least the go-ahead run. And the next day, people at work were like, because even when the Cubs were down 2-1, I said they're going to lose one more game, then they're going to come back and win Game 7 in extra innings. And people were like, that's a really specific prediction, So after that, people started like turning their heads and saying, what's going on with this numerology business? And I explained to them how I found these clues and why I was able to make this prediction. And mind you, I haven't made a whole lot of accurate sports predictions since. It's really not my thing. Zach still does this. He still picks up on something throughout every season and figures out who's going to the Super Bowl like halfway through the year. But so but the weirdest thing to me about it was that the baseball game, did not play out as if it were a rigged game to me. It didn't look like it you would expect if it was staged, if it was a performance, and maybe it was, but I can't wrap my head around how they can rig a baseball game, like how you can hit a 90-mile-an-hour fastball over the wall at will. Like, I don't get that. So, long story short, again, I prayed. I asked for a sign that day because I was like, wow, all these people are now turning to me. I made this prediction, but it didn't make sense how it played out. And I was never really a religious person. I do believe in God. I had a very strong spiritual experience when I was 16. And finally, I just said, "What's going on? This is too weird." That day, and my sister-in-law still doesn't know this story, but I was living with my brother and sister-in-law at the time. I had just broken up with my ex and had moved out, and she lost her father-in-law to a workplace accident that very day, and it happened completely by the numbers. And to make it really, really spooky, the way in which he died, there was a big O-ring that was placed under a huge industrial hammer, and this steel O-ring broke off and broke into a C. And again, this was the same date. Literally, the Cubs won the World Series, and this thing broke into a C. His name gematria sums to 108. And the Cubs broke a 108-year curse.
Wow.
And this story is very hard for me to recite because it sounds so crazy, and people kind of have to take my word for it. I do have details and stuff on my blog on this, but I was just like, whoa, what's going on? And that was the point where I said, this numerology, this gematria stuff, this is beyond conspiracy. This is beyond some people in a room planting things out. And that's when I first messaged Zach, and I told him the story about how someone died that day when I asked for a sign about what's really happening. And it kind of took him aback, but he didn't know who I was or anything. And I ended up building an Excel application, and I called into the Gematria Effect, which is his radio show on Truth Frequency Radio. And he recognized that what I built was useful right away, and pretty much immediately started giving me time on his show to discuss what I was able to learn. And something that I began teaching was reverse gematria. And really, I wasn't teaching it at first. I was just kind of bringing it up. I'd be like, hey, by the way, this is the only team in the NFL that sums to 119, and they're in this ritual again with this number all over the place. And then Zach was the one to kind of take note of that and actually start paying attention to it. And before long, it became very obvious that reverse gematria was the other half of this. Well, what's so staggering about that to me is that my full name, Derek Michael J. Tikori, sums to 1,198 in Jewish gematria, which I say is the most significant cipher. It's based on the old Latin alphabet. And in that same cipher, reverse gematria equals 1,198. Derek Tikori, just my name alone, sums to 142 alphabetic order. The word gematria equals 142 reverse alphabetic order. I was born on a date with 33 numerology, the master teacher number. And this is all stuff I realized after I began teaching this. So, as you apply this to your own life and your own family's birth numerology, the dates that people died, I've also found a significant correlation in couples. The dates on which they get married seem to be significant to the number of days apart they are. Like, this never fails. I have numerous examples of this just in the few I've decoded. And you realize that, this isn't just, like I said, some people sitting around in a room coming up with our future. We are in the midst of some kind of grand construct that we are not even capable of comprehending. And what I see is that all these news stories that are meant to lower our vibrational frequencies, so to speak, which I think there's really something to this. They've even published articles themselves saying that bad news makes you depressed, as if they were waving their flag, proud of their accomplishments. And that's why we get all these bad news stories. They want people buried in the news, just dreading what the world really is. Yeah. I mean, if you only read the news, you would think that this is a racist war zone out there. Yeah. But you go out and talk to people. I just went to a music festival this past week, Electric Forest, which was the time of a life. And, not one incident like between people that I witnessed, ever happened. Hundreds of thousands of people or dozens of thousands of people can get together and have a great time, and like nothing's wrong. I think,
and no negative vibes, no tension, just good, just neighborly love.
Yeah, it's very counterculture, and you realize that concept just of, free love, open love, and, bumping into somebody at the festival on accident and, both guys saying sorry, that's the kind of environment that we're in. And
it's funny you say that, because I came across a video. I have it in somewhere in my YouTube history, and I'll have to post a link. And since I'm mentioning it, I'll have to dig it up and put it in the description below of this after the podcast is over. But it was taken, I think, in 1987 or 1986. And it was just these two kids that went, like two young guys that were just basically filming in a 7-Eleven at like 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, catching a nightlife. And it's like a world we've never seen before. Wow, that most of us have forgotten about anyway, that are old enough to remember those years. But I mean, yeah, like the store manager of the 7-Eleven and one of the coworkers are smoking in the store, and people are walking in, guys sticking a camera in their face, and they're just friendly and talkative, and there's like not a negative vibe in the room whatsoever from what you would expect today.
Yeah, I think that's a lot closer to the true reality that's out there. They've just done such a good job of infecting so many minds. I think that's why you go out on a nice day and you don't see any kids outside. The parks are still empty.
Well, stranger danger. Oh,
it's something they've really concerned people with, and I think what I really ultimately want to spread awareness about when it comes to gematria is that, I mean, yes, people are using this system to script out people's lives and careers and deaths, celebrities who are these rap industry rituals, for instance. We saw it with Tupac and Biggie. We saw two people die on the same day, that rapper XXX Tentacion and then Jimmy Wapo, both on the same day. All of these rituals. I mean, this is obviously part of what I'm trying to expose, but what I also want to get out there is the knowledge that they're doing this for a reason. It's because this is kind of how our lives operate. Right. And to me, it's evidence of the creator, of God. And there's a lot of people who are missing God from their lives, who are missing a sense of purpose. And I like to think that, this kind of knowledge will show people that, hey, we're all here for a reason at the very least. On the other hand, some people don't take well to this knowledge, and I believe that that's a big reason that's why this is occulted in the first place. Of course, by occulted, I mean just kept hidden.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's that this is kind of creepy stuff, like I was decoding my brother's and his ex-wife along with their 2 kids. I was decoding that and just kind of like finding to see if I could see any patterns that were easy to pick up on. And after like 10 minutes, I was getting goosebumps. I had to like leave the room. It was too creepy. You know what I mean? You look at this stuff and you realize that there's something like underneath all this. There's something in control that's beyond ourselves.
Right.
And
right.
I don't know how else to explain it other than that, but
Well, like off camera and off screen there, we talked. Excuse me, sorry about that. Yeah, we were talking about a simulation or some kind of reality that we're creating on the fly, maybe through collective consciousness. What are your thoughts on this?
I think that the way you just phrased it is really excellent. And it's funny. I was just checking out this a clip of a Joe Rogan podcast, and I heard a very interesting quote that he said, where he said, like, to him, what consciousness is, the way he defines it, is him using language to try to interpret the world around him and define how he feels.
Mm.
And that's so true. I mean, we think in words, whether we're aware of it or not. And as far as this whole shared consciousness concept goes, I believe that a lot of this, programming that's in the media is to kind of help steer the minds of the masses towards a certain thought or idea.
To maybe create a different reality other than what we would have created on our own without outside assistance, I guess you could call it.
Yeah, and I did some documenting once when gun control was a big issue after the Parkland shooting, and then there was a city in Florida that banned assault rifles, and like that week, the next 2 weeks, I kept documenting how, like the phrase gun control equals 139 in the alphabetic order, and I was documenting how all of these people with gematria of 139 were getting like killed or sacrificed in the news, or they were resigning, or they were getting fired. And I'm like, I just threw it out there like, hey, this is just 5 or 6 139s in 4-day span. It's like, are they trying to program our brains to accept the destruction of the Second Amendment through gematria? I mean, this sounds crazy, but I couldn't think of any other explanation for a pattern like that. I mean, I study this a lot, and I can kind of pick up on when something is, something is a little abnormal. So yeah, I think this whole concept of shared consciousness, it might be numerically based. And I think when they teach us the alphabet, they're also implanting a numerical system in our subconscious that we are not consciously aware of, but it's something that when we think about a certain word, there's actually a number underneath that is then programming the reality, because our thoughts are not completely independent of the reality that we exist in. Our brains are connected to the greater Earth consciousness, from what I've explored and found throughout this study.
Well, you got to remember too. I mean, at the same time, the numbers are a construct of our ability to envision a representation of value. So the numbers themselves don't exactly exist in and of themselves. It's not like God invented the number.
They're like quantum, right?
Yeah, but they're representational of values, which follow a code, I guess you could say. Like we created the cipher itself by creating a language that can be translated into either a feeling or some kind of a construct. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's really the intent with gematria. I mean, this English language, the fact that they chose a 26-letter alphabet, for instance, is very significant for a number of reasons. It all goes back down to the fact that we have 206 bones in our body, I think, and
and if you use a 0 as a separator, then you have your 26.
Exactly. And
yeah, in numerology, zeros don't count.
Yeah, it's like in programming, you can choose a character to represent what we call white space, and white space doesn't count. It's the same kind of concept.
Yep.
So what's unique about a 26-letter alphabet is how reverse gematria is implemented into the standard order. So what this means is, like, let's take the letter M, for instance. Well, the letter M is the 13th letter, and in the reverse order, it's the 14th letter. Now, when you add up these digits, 1 plus 3 plus 1 plus 4, it sums to 9. So you're always going to get that. Like, whatever a word reduces to in the alphabetic order, subtract that number from 9, and then that's what the word will reduce to in the opposite order. And I tend to wonder if there's some sort of subconscious significance to that as well, in addition to just having the standard alphabetic order mean something in our brains. You know, like I said, I think, you know, the whole idea of what's it called? The law of attraction, right? Where supposedly you think something or you believe something, you invest emotion into it, you really sell out for that, and you really live and breathe that goal. It's kind of along the same lines of what we're talking about, is that if you can really change your reality based on your thoughts, then maybe there's some sort of recognizable code by which it happens. And I think with gematria, it's like, you know, did the creator even expect anybody to, like, technology to get to the level where we would be able to calculate these things and figure it out? Or is this all part of the goal of, you know, awakening?
Is that part of hacking our own reality, because we created the ciphers? I mean, if we were just butt naked on zebras running around in the wild, would we have actually come up with a language to define our experience of our reality? So I mean, I think it's fair to say that maybe we've figured out how to hack our own reality by understanding it through our own cipher.
Yeah, and that's why I deem the term reality hackers, because that's kind of how I saw it, was like that. If we were in some sort of matrix, universal or whatever you call it, like a reality-based simulation type of thing, we're simulating some other reality, obviously, if that was the case, and there would have to be code to it.
Yeah. And I mean, like I said before, we invented the language, we invented the numbers and the numerology, not the numerology, but we invented the numbers that represent the numerology in which that we can express it. However, they still have their value. In my interpretation so far of what I understand. Yeah, go ahead, take it away, somebody.
Yeah, if God is in charge and kind of you know, recycling souls, so to speak, through this birth and death process, yeah, one would expect that there would be some sort of recognizable code or pattern to it. Forgive me, I kind of lost my train of thought.
No worries.
Where we were headed before that. But yeah, I mean, this is definitely something to do with how we create reality. And, you know, I was talking about the moon before, and yes. I forget if we were on air when I mentioned this, but
no, we were still off air. It was just before we went on, actually. But go on. This is a big thing. This is actually a big deal.
Yeah. The whole idea that the moon is the architect, so to speak, of reality, and this is something that's actually taught in the Kabbalah, where the Yesod or Yeshad is the sphere closest to Malkuth, which is the material world. And what it teaches is that things filter through the Yeshad and then project our reality here on Earth. And it's just interesting that when you type out the moon in Gematria, it sums to 90 and 99 in the reverse order. And the word reality also sums to 90 and 99 reverse. And here you have, you know, women have their menstruation cycle, and think about the letters MN there, like month, like moon. So if the moon is the architect of reality, and, you know, it would make sense that it would sync up with the menstruation cycle, which it does. And what I've discovered is that, like, looking back on my own family's numerology, the numbers of the moon are what are predominantly everywhere. So, like, my last name, Tikuri, spelled Tikkuri, that sums to 99 ordinal and 90 reverse, just like the moon. My parents were married on a date with 90 and 99 numerology. And this all goes into the cycles of the moon as well. Like my mom's name using the alphabetic order sums to 223, which is the number of months in a Saros cycle, which is what gives us eclipses. My parents are 235 days apart. 235 is the number of synodic months in the Metonic cycle, which is the 19-year period that syncs up the solar calendar with the lunar calendar. So when I look back on my life, and this even goes into like love interests I had, like shortly after that religious experience, it was like 2 months and 23 days before 9/11 happened. And I was going through all these changes in my life as well. And all of those all happened by the numbers of the moon. And I'm going to save you guys the trouble and not get too deep into it because it's just a lot of numbers. But like, I have all the proof I need to know that, you know, there's something underneath this existence that we're experiencing. And in my case, at least, something wanted me to discover this and know about it.
Right.
And, you know, it's funny because I think about where I worked at this time. Like, the reason I had this spiritual experience is because I was working at a Christian coffee house and we had a Bible study that we fired up after a couple of months. And the owners of the coffee house, one of them was a former Major League Baseball player. He played for the Brewers. His name was Jim Gantner. He and his wife owned it, and his wife, who was, you know, a devout Christian, so much so like she would speak in tongues during prayer before work. You know, it was very odd at the time for me. And she recognized me like without barely knowing me. She said I was a prophet, and I was like, whoa, hold your tails here, you know. And this is something that people there mention, and it's like, I mean, hey, look, if you type in the calculator Gematrinator, you get the same numbers as false prophet. Okay, so take that as you will, but you know, the fact is, like, all of a sudden I stumbled into this knowledge without really knowing what I was getting into. And originally I came to this showing like, hey, I want to show everybody the conspiracy, everything that's going on with the numbers.
Right.
And now, I mean, after looking at this for as long as I have no idea what's a conspiracy and what is just happening by the numbers. I think a lot more than I originally thought does just happen by the numbers. However, I don't believe I'm the first person to ever build a gematria calculator and make these observations. I feel like this has been done, and this is what's occulted, and they tease us with this knowledge. You know, they'll construct stories using these numbers without people knowing. But now that we have the same tools they've apparently been using, we can just, boom, simply dissect the story and show you exactly how it's constructed by the numbers. And again, things happen by the numbers, but that big gray area, trying to figure that out is what really keeps me coming back to this, you know?
Well, to build on to that, I won't get too technical with it because I don't understand the entirety of it myself. However, scientists, basically astrophysicists, were trying to attempt to calculate the distance of the cosmic microwave background information that they received in order to create a three-dimensional picture, and they were having serious issues with it, and they didn't know exactly how to attack it or how to resolve the problems. What they ended up doing inadvertently was creating data correction routines that are actually used by encryption software. They were using data correction routines. Like, they didn't realize they were plugging in the exact same equations and algorithms used by data correction routines for software compression and encryption, and realized that they were getting the right answers, or at least getting answers that worked out. And I thought that was amazing. This was a reports that came out like about 4 or 5 years ago regarding this. You might want to look into it, and everybody listening, go ahead and check it out, because it is quite staggering when you realize that it does come back down to numbers. I mean, in terms of our perception and understanding and calculation of our environment and reality. And that was one of the things that really kind of hit home when it came to the simulation theory. Because, I mean, yeah, okay, let's go for a cliche and talk about the Matrix and what have you. But this is where we're kind of going with this down this road, is that a simulation would have to use data correction and error correction routines. But yeah, it's really bizarre stuff. Steve, you still there?
Yep. It could be an artificial intelligence algorithmic like type of prophecy machine type of thing, like using past what do you call it? Past recognition, like patterns that have happened, and using those to see what's going to happen using those same patterns. Because we as humans, we seem to just do the same shit over and over again. So it's
Yeah.
like it's easy to pattern us out.
Well, here's the thing, right? Is that like we are bound, as far as we know, as far as we are aware, in terms of forget about time for a second, but we are bound by what we call the speed of light, and speed of light has a certain duration of what we call time in order to get from point A to point B, which seems to be the barrier that separates us from finding out what happened in other places, especially when, you know, whether it's true or not, our universe is expanding and all this. It brings up a whole lot of these issues of a barrier to the full understanding. Now, getting back into life hacks and code. I mean, if these things are encoded, we would just have to be able to figure out how to calculate things out properly, if that makes any
Right, and
sense.
I think that's what we call magic.
Okay.
It's one form of it,
Be-
probably. Yeah.
Well,
Because a magic to me is basically just essentially a science that we don't understand yet, and a
right.
technology that's used by that so-called science that we don't understand yet.
Right. I do want to send a message out to the people in chat. I'd like to say hello and thank you for showing up and being there, watching us live. If you guys have any questions at all, go ahead, fire them up in there. If you want to send a message off to Derek or to Fear Porn Propaganda or myself, go ahead, fire it in there, and I'll make sure that your questions are at least addressed, if not answered. Anyway, yeah, just thanks, guys. I appreciate the turnout. All 10 of
Oh,
you.
I had a question. So Derek, what do you think about the idea of having a Gematria con?
Well, hell, I'd be all for it. I mean, I guess if something was put together, I would certainly, assemble some sort of presentation or whatever.
Okay, cool. Because like I definitely would, if I can set this up, I would like you to be a speaker for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for advancing the knowledge, whatever we got to do. I mean, it's I find myself kind of overwhelmed with it sometimes as far as like how to distribute this stuff. So if anybody's willing to help, I mean,
Yeah.
I'll just show up, I guess. Yeah, that's fine.
I'm trying
Okay,
to host.
perfect.
I'm trying to host a show, and I'm overwhelmed by it. So please. So let's switch gears up a bit and go on to something that we were talking about a little bit earlier. And you were saying about media reliving the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. Can
Oh,
you
yeah.
can you please expand on this this idea?
Sure.
And give some examples for the audience.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I touched on probably the two best examples earlier, which was
The moon.
the the moon, but the double murders of Tupac back in 1996,
Right.
and then
Right.
Notorious B.I.G. Shortly after that in March. Now, in the Bible, if you actually read the Gospels carefully, you'll realize that Jesus was crucified under an event that appears to be a solar eclipse. And, they talk about the skies getting dark for several hours. So that certainly seems to be the case, and it's pretty consistent. So there's some artwork for this too that you can find. Well, the Notorious B.I.G., he was known as Biggie. That was his nickname, Biggie. And in Gematria, 2 plus 9 plus 7 plus 7 plus 9 plus 5, Biggie equals 39. He died on the date March 9th, which is written 3/9. And in one of the 4 base ciphers on my website called Reverse Reduction, the word eclipse equals 39. And on that date, March 9th, there was a total solar eclipse over the continent of Africa. So Biggie 39, eclipse 39. He's dead on 3/9, the date of an eclipse. And this ties back to Tupac as well. Now, the name Jesus, using the alphabetic order, 10 plus 5 plus 19 plus 21 plus 19 equals 74. And 74 is a super significant number.
I was born in 74.
Robert, you were born in 74 right there. Well, the word gospel equals 74, the word Messiah 74, cross equals 74, even the word Lucifer equals 74, which kind of makes you think a little bit about what they're really telling us in the Bible sometimes. So the name Tupac, using the reverse alphabetic order, where Z is 1 and A is 26, Tupac equals 74. His other rapper name was Machiavelli. In the alphabetic order, Machiavelli equals 74. Notorious B.I.G. in single reduction sums to 74. And what was the other one? I think it was his name, Christopher Wallace. Let me just double check. I know he's got two ways of getting to 74. Oh, Biggie Smalls.
That's it.
Biggie Smalls equals 74 reverse reduction. And then the Notorious B.I.G. 74 single reduction. So this number is stamped on both these guys.
Mm.
And if you look at their... oh, here's another one. They both died in drive-by shootings. In Gematria, using the reverse alphabetic order, drive-by shooting equals 213. And this is a significant number, especially in these racial rituals. Black History Month equals 213. Black Panther equals 213. The word nigga equals 213 in Satanic Gematria. Well, Tupac, it was 213 days before he died that he released his album on the date February 13th, 213. Oh, that was the last album before he died. So you see this ritual played out. Now, I just recently uploaded my most viewed video ever on YouTube. It had over 250,000 views. And I think maybe some of the reason that it was popular is because while I didn't make a post about it, I did email a buddy of mine who asked me when the next big date for something would happen was. Because I think I'm starting to build a little track record on saying, hey, like we're going to get some sort of big sacrifice or some death on this date. And then it happens. We get this happened again with XXX Tentacion and Jimmy Wapo.
Okay.
Right.
So the reason I was able to pick this date out is because I measured it to the eclipses. Now there's these two total solar eclipses that are creating an X over the United States. And one of them just occurred in August of last year. The next one will be on April 8th of 2024. So when I'm looking for dates that I think we might see a sacrifice on, I'm looking at the eclipses because the story of Jesus crucified under a solar eclipse, and we see this over and over again. Not just in the Tupac and Biggie, but a lot of other work that I've done as well. So the reason I picked that date is because it was 43 weeks after the last eclipse and 303 weeks before the next eclipse. The words Jesus Christ equals 43 in Pythagorean Gematria. Using the alphabetic order, crucifixion of Jesus Christ equals 303. So I said, hey, this looks like a good date. In fact, maybe even something big.
So 303, just to take people back, 303 would be 33.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the age that Jesus died at. So, think about how this whole language of Gematria, so many things, just can't be coincidental. And I think that's one of them.
I have a question. On the 74-33 thing, how come there's a relationship between those?
I'm not entirely sure why 33 seems to get paired so much. It's just to me, 33 is more of a stamp of, whether it be Masonic activity or some sort of...
Well, I mean, for instance, what about the 33rd periodic table of element is arsenic equals 33, and then the atomic weight is 74.
Right. We see this in the States too. Oregon is the 33rd state. Oregon's the only state that sums to 74 in the alphabetic order. Its abbreviation OR equals 33. I'm not sure why those two numbers are. I know that 47 and 74 are pretty significant, I think, due in large part to the fact that...
Probably the primes.
That was the second thing I was going to mention. I think
go ahead.
The idea of just in basic numerology, the idea that 4 is the number of foundation, right, and that this fourth prime number is 7, and 7 is a God number. The letter G, geometry, God, gematria, G, the seventh letter. And then, of course, the reversal being 74. And reversals seem to be much the same as their inverse. It's
yeah. When you do the research, you find that they inverse back and forth all the time within the same words.
I think
in different ciphers.
I think we need to break down for people the terminologies of the different ways that these things are calculated, because you've mentioned reverse numerology or reverse gematria. Could you break down these terms like one by one, just to explain how they kind of work?
Sure. So they're all built off of the alphabetic order. And when we say alphabetic order, English ordinal, that's the cipher where A is worth 1, B is worth 2, all the way through X is 24, Y 25, Z 26. And that to me is the most basic logical cipher that exists.
That's the easiest one.
Yeah, absolutely. The reverse alphabetic order is just about as simple. I mean, you simply flip the alphabetic order so that Z equals 1, Y equals 2, X equals 3, all the way through A as 26. And we talked about how there's symmetry between the ordinal and reverse methods because of the 26-letter alphabet.
Mm-hmm.
The reduction methods, these are also called Pythagorean gematria. So let's say you take the English ordinal cipher, and once you get to J, now you're in double-digit numbers. Well, in Pythagorean gematria, or full reduction on my website, J, instead of being 10, becomes the number 1 because 1 plus 0 equals 1. Similarly, K, the 11th letter, 11 is 1, 1. 1 plus 1 equals 2, so K becomes 2.
Right. Okay.
And when we say reverse reduction, it's the same idea, but with the reverse order. So when you're looking at reverse reduction, the 10th letter would be Q. And 1 plus 0 is 1, so Q becomes 1. And it's just the same two orders reversed. And,
right.
A lot of people, they come into it and they see 4 ciphers and it kind of turns them off right away.
Yeah.
And
I think of it like a square. It's like, because of the idea of the foundation, the number 4. If you have all of those sides to create the shape, you have the formulation frontwards and backwards. It's like a square.
Exactly. That's a really good way of looking at it. I see it like a tapestry. I mean, every word is going to have a certain number in a certain range. And these reduction and ordinal methods, they're in different ranges, So this provides for the possibility of a long word having the same gematria as a shorter word just through the reduction methods. It provides for those relations. And as long as the person who's coming into this study can allow their minds to make room for that and say, yes, there are like 4 numbers, and there are other forms of gematria too, but those are the base 4 that are most significant.
Right.
Also, Derek, explain the relationships to primes, because that's a big factor in this study. And there are a lot of them I've noticed as I'm doing my own research, the Jewish numbers that pop out of a word are often either a prime number, a triangular number, a square root number, something mathematical like that.
Right. So in addition to words having the same gematric connections, you can also see similarity in prime numbers. So for instance, I just did a post yesterday on the death of a wrestler named Matt Capitelli. His name, using the alphabetic order, equals 163. 163 is the 38th prime number. Death equals 38. Killing equals 38. Reduction. And this guy died at 38 years old. So that's just an example of how there's almost always some sort of prime number relationship that's heavy to it. Also, Ed Schultz, a political commentator, passed away last week. His full name was Edward Andrew Schultz, I believe. Let me just...
that name rings a huge bell. I'm not sure who that is.
Edward Andrew Schultz. He was on MSNBC. He was on RT.
Okay, right.
Well, using the alphabetic order, his name equals 229. 229 is the 50th prime number, and the date he died had 50 numerology. That was just a few days ago. Let's see, that was the 5th. 7 plus 5 plus 20 plus 18 equals 50. So again, someone dying with that significant prime number relationship, very evident. And in sports too, we remember the miracle play. Remember the Minnesota Vikings against the New Orleans Saints in the playoffs, where they just heaved a pass with like 10 seconds left. The defender completely whiffed on the tackle, knocked out his own guy. The Vikings player runs all the way to the end zone for the touchdown. They were calling it the miracle play. Well,
Wow.
in the reverse alphabetic order, the word miracle, in the standard order, miracle equals 61, and it was a 61-yard play. The name Jesus equals 61 in the reverse order, and the guy who caught the pass had matching 316 gematria with Jesus Christ. But aside from that, he wore number 43. The guy who tried tackling him wore number 43.
And Jesus is 43, as Casey Jones just said in the chat.
Jesus Christ is 43. 43 is the 14th prime number, and the receiver wears number 14.
Holy Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you see how so it's a riddle. It's like a riddle
Right.
that's placed within the numbers, and if you understand what the numbers mean, then you can see the riddle. And it's not like the numbers mean anything. It's like you assign the meaning based on the narrative that's around the numbers.
Exactly. And you have to be logical about this. And what drives me nuts is so many people who come to the Discord and the study, they just fucking like flush out like 30 lines of, gematria, this equals that, this equals that. And it's like, where's the logic here?
No narrative to it.
Where's the narrative? With the play I just talked about, the narrative was it was a miracle. And Jesus performs miracles. So you can see the story build right there. And you're seeing this. I've been calling all year. There's this player in the Brewers this year named Jesus Aguilar. And I've been talking about how, all these significant accomplishments he's been doing has been by the numbers. And now look, he didn't make it into the All-Star game, even though he's got like 20 plus home runs at the break. And now they've launched this campaign to vote him in here in Milwaukee. And the campaign is like, we believe in Jesus. And it's like, this is kind of mockery. Like, if this guy's name was Muhammad, you wouldn't see Muhammad posters. But with Christianity, it's okay to mock it, And, me, like I said, I'm not religious. I don't consider myself to be part of a certain religion. But when I asked for Jesus Christ, he delivered. So something's going on there, whether it's a spell, whether it's magic. I don't know. But there's something behind that. There's some truth to that. And I think whatever truth is to that is what they're mocking through the media and through these stories.
Another thing to it. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you go ahead first.
Okay, I just wanted to have you kind of reiterate the process of evaluation from a birth date to an event, because a lot of the times these measurements are associated with either from the birth date to the event or after the event to another birth date.
Sure. Okay, so back to this kind of ties back into the story I was talking about, where I predicted that we would get a sacrifice, maybe a big one, on the date June 18th, and that's when that rapper, the #1 best-selling rapper, XXXTentacion, died. So, again, this was all about the story of Jesus Christ. In the alphabetic order, Jesus Christ equals 151. In the reverse order, XXXTentacion equals 151. Now, in that reverse method, Jesus Christ equals 146. This guy died 146 days after his birthday. So this is the type of thing where it's like, hey, I think we're going to see a sacrifice because of these Jesus numbers. And then it happened, and the guy has all the numbers I was talking about. In addition to that, crucifixion of Jesus Christ, which we mentioned sums to 303, like 33, the age he died at. In reduction, it sums to 123. And XXXTentacion was born on January 23rd, 123. So the birth dates are always super significant as well. And think about Kanye West. Remember how he showed up with that crucifix statue in Hollywood, California? Well, Kanye West equals 123 in Gematria, alphabetic order, just like crucifixion of Jesus Christ. In fact, his
also conspiracy 123.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't make that connection before, but the word conspiracy summing to 123, and when you look at the numbers, you kind of think like, man, this whole story of the crucifixion of Jesus Christ is this conspiracy resulting in a ritual human sacrifice under a solar eclipse. And it's just, the numbers just seem to prove that. And I never took the Bible so seriously until I looked at this stuff, and then just seeing how much effort they put into mocking Jesus makes me want to even believe in Jesus more. You know.
Okay, and this brings us to another aspect that you mentioned earlier, and you were talking about satanic gematria. Please expand on that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So there are a few other ciphers in addition to these alphabetic orders, and they're all based in the alphabetic order. If you actually look back at the Hebrew language, you'll find that they had base 10 ciphers, and actually many more ciphers, but there was a base 10, and some of these were based on concepts of mathematics like prime numbers, triangular numbers, square numbers. And these are ciphers
Quickly,
that are available on my
what's a
site.
triangular number? What's a square number? Well, square I essentially think is a root or a product of 4.
Yeah, so the first one would be primes. So we've been talking about prime number relationships, numbers that are only divisible by 1 and itself.
Right.
Triangular numbers, which is a cipher called trigonal.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say the fourth triangular number is 10, and think about bowling, right? You have the bowling pins set up in a triangle, and you have 4 rows to get 10 pins because 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 equals 10.
Okay, I follow you. Okay.
Square numbers, just like you said. I mean, you take the the second square number would be 4. 2 times 2 is 4. Third square number would be 9. 3 times 3 is 9. So
and
C gets 9
16.
in that cipher.
Then you get 16. Then you get 25, and so on and so forth. Right. Gotcha.
Yeah. So then he assigned those with the numbers of the alphabet and then created a cipher out of it.
Right.
Sure. So that's one method. Satanic gematria is a little bit different. Instead of starting at 1 and ending on 26, satanic gematria begins with the number 36. And think about the number of the beast from the Bible. Of course, it's 666. Well, 666 is a triangular number. It's the 36th triangular number. So if you extend those bowling pins out 36 rows in a big triangle, you get 666 bowling pins.
Right.
Not only that, but when you write out satanic gematria and assign the satanic cipher to it, the letter S gets 54. A gets 36, like I mentioned. Satanic gematria in satanic gematria equals 666.
That's fucked up.
So
right. So, but you realize how it's kind of clever, right?
Symmetry.
I mean,
it's symmetry.
Right. There's very clearly some intent there. And I think just that alone, kind of shows you, all right, this is a little more clever than we initially gave it credit for,
Well, we actually, we don't exactly know who or what group specifically to give credit to for our language, for our letters, and I mean, we have names and we have an idea, but these things have been used for quite a long time and have gone through several revisions over
Right.
the last thousands of years. I mean,
That's what's so weird about it, is that we know that English evolved. There's far too much evidence out there to suggest that English just popped up one day, became a language, and was instantly, this is how we speak. We went through variations of Latin, through Old English, even through the Shakespeare times with the original King James Bible printings.
And before
language
that,
wasn't the same.
Like Aramaic. I mean, going right back to Jesus' language. I mean, the Wa is the 6th letter, which is what was used by CERN when they created the World Wide Web. Like, I mean, essentially, every time you type in www, you're typing in 666.
Right. So there's this mystery, I mean, we understand that the language evolved, and I don't think that evidence was faked. Like, there's no way you can plant all this fake evidence suggesting that the language evolved when it didn't. So I believe it did. But the fact is, I can't explain how this all came about. All these phrases and words having meaningful values long after the Bible was written. But it did happen, and we are now able to pick up on these patterns and show them. And most people who look at this with a critical eye come away with an understanding that there's not a coincidences here. I mean, there's clearly
it's like a
intent
puzzle.
right. I mean, and that's kind of how I feel about it. Like, we can see the individual pieces of the puzzle as humans in the larger construct. We can't see the entire puzzle, but we can certainly see pieces of it and things sort of that fit together. But to make
Yeah,
any
we can
sense of it seems to be
see
beyond
one
my.
that goes together and then kind of builds a little picture for us, but we can't see the whole entire thing.
Yeah. And
Well, actually, just to add to that conspiracy, I have to say, remember we mentioned the collective consciousness. I mean, it's also a collective observation as well, because the only thing a person can see is what they experience with all of their senses. And I mean, we also collect that in the reverse sense of the collective consciousness. I mean, it's collective observation as well, and I mean that's what we're doing right now at this very minute with this podcast. This is a collective observation as well as communication. It's a two-way avenue.
right. And much as how I think the numbers that are behind the letters and words in our mind are doing something to shift reality in a slight manner, I think symbols operate the same way. Because if you think about it, really numbers are just symbols, a representation of a quantity as
Well,
far as we understand.
and actually, and furthermore to what you're saying, I mean, look at something like vector graphics or scalar graphics. I mean, these things like are computational by numbers to create an image.
Right.
Vectors even more so. Vectors are instructions on how to create an image, not the actual collection of pixels. Let's say they're a collection of algorithms that create the image. And I mean, if we were to take that information with gematria in mind, there's definitely some form of spell casting taking place. It's no different than a mage using his hands to make runes like in the air.
Right. And there came a point for me. I know you wanted to mention like murder by numbers and death by numbers and whatnot.
Well, I
I
think
think
you already covered some of it. Yeah, with
We
the
covered a lot of
XXX
that.
Tentacion. Yeah, you're good on
well,
that.
well, yeah, but I mean, I also want to touch on the organic side of this too.
Okay.
Oh
And
yeah, yeah, definitely.
because I feel like all these rituals are built with the knowledge that again, this is how the world that we're actually living in does operate. And I think maybe maybe like a form of worship for these people who feel like they have an elevated understanding over the rest of the people on this world about this matrix. Because, like I said, I'm not the first person to build a gematria calculator. I'm just one of the first people to build one and then turn around and show it to people like, hey, what's going on here? um, so I think that knowledge is known, but
And you're also demonstrating as well. So then that allows us to either copy your process or do one on our own and do basically apply the knowledge for ourselves and to see if there's anything in our lives that you haven't decoded anything, and see if there's similar prospect that comes out of it, similar sums or whatever. And maybe it measures the same kind of theme category that you would be working with at that time.
yeah, it's tricky, and it's like I feel like if everybody digs deep enough, they're gonna find all sorts of things with their family's numerology, and I mean they probably won't even have to dig that deep. They just have to look, and
You just gotta do like your name and your birth date, the numerology of that, and then reference the time frame from your birth to your mother's or your father's or their birth to each other, and then see if
sure.
any of those numbers match.
So for instance, my mother's name in the reverse reduction method sums to 119. And this is a number we commonly identify as being significant. It's a very Saturnian number, 119.
All-seeing eye.
All seeing eye summing to 119. I was born 1 month, 19 days before my mom, and 9 months, 11 days before my dad. So how weird is that, And then it turns out that my long-term ex-girlfriend, her name sums to 119, and I met her on November 9th, 11/9. So that would be an example of, something that someone should be able to pick out of their own numerology. Like if I wrote a program where people could, enter the names and birthdays and stuff like that.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it would be tricky because there's no
I
formula.
don't know how you do it, but that would be cool.
Well, yeah, you would just have to look for similarities and point them out. But how do you point out which ones are most significant? So
Yeah.
when I was looking at my brother and his ex, I noticed, their birthdays are 269 days apart. They got married on the date that leaves 269 days in the year. And it was funny because the last couple I decoded, I did a podcast for a buddy of mine, and I found that he and his wife were 293 weeks apart. If you add up their common names in Gematria, you get 293, and they were born on the date that leaves 293 days left in the year. And these are just things that pop at me instantly. And it's like all the tools people need to see it is right there. I mean, I can only do so much to help spread it.
You could program that as a relational database. It is possible. I could even possibly help you with that because I am a bit of a programmer and I've done relational databases. In the side chat here, I don't know if you have it open on your Google Hangouts. I popped in my name as it is, and then my mom's name, her full name, and then my original full name before my name changed, before I became a Morris. So let's have some fun now. You only got about what 20 minutes left, or you're only good till what 9:30 or 8:30?
I can probably go for another 50 minutes. That's fine.
All right, cool. Well, let's have some fun with it. Let's get all Gematria.
Let's do some live decoding.
Yeah, right. And we're gonna get into some other celebrities as well. I mean, we're gonna see what we're gonna find. I got a couple ideas.
So that way, when the viewers come and check this out, they can actually copy the process and see how it goes for themselves.
Exactly.
That's what I ended up doing in the past. Similar to you, I was trying to debunk like Zach's work when I came across it because I didn't believe it myself, because I don't believe anything unless I go, yeah, exactly. And so I started going through his blog and through his past videos before they took him down, and I did the same process. I figured out how he would do what he did, and I did the same process for the breakdowns that he was doing, and I would come across the same information. So I'd be like, okay, well, obviously this is not made up. Like, there's clearly information here. It's clearly done this way. It's like proof in a sense because I'm literally doing it for myself, and I'm getting the same results.
Yeah, exactly.
So then I did it with other stuff, and I found similar numbers or same number schemes, same themes, different storylines, and he didn't even break those down. So it's like clearly there was something there, and that's when I started, doing my notes, writing my notes. Anyway, I just want to interject that. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of on the viewer to really take this knowledge and see how far they want to go with it. It's like, I mean, it's one thing to see someone do it on their own, but then once I built the calculator, and again, this was all sparked by that World Series and that death that happened that day. I was like, I got to build this thing and just start looking at it closer for myself. And that ultimately ended up in the website being built, and the rest is history. But just as a side note, like, when I put the website live, when I finished the calculator, it was like 20 minutes after midnight, and it was 137 days before my birthday. The word webmaster equals 137. And it's just like everything I've done as far as like looking back on the dates that I did this, all those seem to be coded by the numbers too. It's wild stuff.
Kidding. Wow.
Yeah, and I've been looking into the sum of divisors. Can you explain the sum of divisors of your area in the numbers section?
Yeah,
your properties?
Divisors this has to do with prime numbers. So prime numbers are numbers that are only divisible by 1 and itself. And for any prime number, the sum of divisors is going to be whatever that number is plus 1. So the number 7, because there are no divisors other than 1 and 7, the sum of divisors will be 8. So for a number like 170, which is the gematria in the alphabetic order of Robert Morris, the number 170 has several divisors. The number 2, of course, because it's even. The number 5, 10, 17, 34, and 85. All of these numbers can be multiplied into 170. So if you add all those numbers together, that's what gives you the sum of divisors. I know there's some significance to it. I actually, if you look at my work, I have like virtually no work in sum of divisors, but I try to.
No, no. When you originally started with your sign of times, you threw a couple of some of divisor relationships, which were really interesting, and it kind of sparked something in me, and I kind of created like on the blog the database, the area where the color section is. I actually I went through all of your like number systems, and anywhere there's like a word that had a relationship to either a triangular, a square, a square root, I mean, whatever you call it, a prime, or I haven't done the octals in those yet, but I think I'm eventually going to do those too. I just have to come back to those. But so far, it's been interesting because I found some interesting stuff out. We like to come across the number 144, right, in its relationship to the beast and time with 44. And when you write out 44, it equals 144 and that whole thing. Can you explain that real fast? Because I'm not really good at explaining that.
Oh, as far as the 44-144 connection?
Yes.
And
the beast.
Right. So the word clock using the alphabetic order equals 44. And in Jewish gematria, which is based in Latin, the really old gematria, the word time equals 144. And what's interesting too is that if you write out 44 and the date that's written 4/4, which is April 4th, they both sum to 144. And 144 is special because it's the 12th Fibonacci number, and it's 12 times 12. So it's and of course 12 hours in a day, 12 signs of the zodiac, a number heavily significant in time.
1440 minutes in a day.
That's right. So yeah, 24 hours, 60 minutes each hour, you get 1,440 minutes in a day. And the number 88, you know how 8 is the infinity symbol? Well, 88 is used commonly to signify the passage of time. Think about Back to the Future, 88 miles an hour. And the number 88
I cosplay George McFly from Back to the Future.
Oh, excellent.
as a job.
So the number 88 has 4 circles in it, and in those circles are 1,440 degrees, the number of minutes in a day. So that seems to be the crux of most of it. I know there's more. I know Zenith of the Alpha would like to share more.
I think that was a good summarization for sure. I just wanted to interlude and add to the work that I've been doing with kind of documenting the sum of divisor stuff. I found this out. 70 sum of divisors is 144. 94 is 144. 552 or 552 is 1440. 570 is 1440.
I'm back.
594 is 1440. 616 is 1440. 765 is 1404. 826 is 1440. 1045 is 1440. And that's all I have so far. I have some for 216 as well, but I don't need to go into those. I just wanted to show those actually.
You got to catch me up. I had to disappear for like 3 minutes there.
Okay, well, we were just talking about the sum of divisors.
Oh, I see. All right.
Yeah, it's a concept I think is significant. I don't mention it too much just because there are a lot of numbers that have a sum of divisors of the same number. Like for instance, 14,040. There's 15 numbers with the sum of divisors of that. So it's just I'm in the field of already running a lot of numbers, so I'm in coincidence territory to a lot of people. So it's not something I focus on, but there's definitely something to it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I understand where you're going with that because it's like a riddle within itself or a math riddle within itself because it seems to correlate back and forth with each other. And I've noticed that, but I mean, I don't see how you what do you do with that? I don't know how to interpret that. It's just interesting that certain numbers equal other numbers in the sum of divisors, and then you can use those as relations to the narrative.
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, but again, the number 144, there's another number too is 66. Sum of divisors is 144, 119. It's
Casey Jones just went and said on 2/18 the sun is at the 330th ecliptic.
yeah. So 218. That's a moon number.
Okay, yeah. Explain that one because that's a big one that pops up associated with time.
And just before he said that, he said 1 + 2 + 109 + 218. That's your 330, I believe.
Okay, so the number 218. This is an interesting one. The Hebrew word for moon equals 218. Let's see. What was the relationship? 338. Maybe Bobby's the better one at 218. Like, I don't know exactly what sums to 218 that's so significant. I just know it's a super significant number. The word death equals 218 in English gematria. But like 218 is definitely this marker for time, and I think it has a lot to do with the gematria of moon.
Yeah, and it has to do with the hands on a clock. Zenith like goes into that, flips them up and down, upward or upside down, and it's very strange how it all works out with the clock versus time versus Jesus Christ because it's like thrown in there.
Yeah, and I want to point out too, like this eclipse that we had last year, it was on August 21st, which is the date written 21/8, like 218. And in gematria, the Great American Total Solar Eclipse of 2017 equals 218 in reduction. So there's something important to it. As far as what he's saying with 218, on the date 218, the sun is at the 330th ecliptic. And in gematria, the word sun equals 330 using the Jewish cipher. So I find that to be pretty significant. And then when the sun is at 218, I believe it's Halloween, which is the high holiday on the pagan calendar.
Right.
And again, death equals 218 in extended gematria. And just for anyone new, when I say extended gematria, we're actually talking about a cipher that's closer to Greek and Hebrew gematria. It's where the numbers go 1 through 9, but then instead of increasing by 1, they increase by 10. So it goes 1 through 9, 10 through 90, and then 100 through 800 at the end of the alphabet. So you get much, much bigger numbers. And in that method, death equals 218.
Interesting.
And again, I think the moon has everything to do with
I haven't done
life and death
extended a
cycles.
lot. When you're doing extended, do you come across a lot of triangulars and what do you call it, primes?
Not nearly as much, I don't feel, as Jewish gematria.
And you
Yeah,
know,
I feel like the Jewish has like so many.
I was just going to say though, they also celebrate the Day of the Dead, November 2nd, in Mexico.
No, that's true.
Which is
that would be 11/2.
It's a couple of days off, but it's I don't know. Just throwing that out there.
11/2, yeah, that's an interesting date.
Well, it is a death thing, so 112 is something I can't remember what though off the top of my head. Like a relationship or relating it to things. I keep it as a orange in mind, which has to do with like generally prime mathematical structures and or like I couldn't figure out where to put it, so I put it in orange.
Yeah, and just another thing about these prime number relationships with Jewish gematria, one of my favorites is that the word moon using the alphabetic order equals 57. And this is because the moon travels 57 degrees across the ecliptic. It goes 28.5 degrees north, and it goes 28.5 degrees south. So it has this 57-degree range. The word moon equals 57. Now, if you write out the number 57 as it's spelled, in Jewish gematria, you get the number 1361, which is the 218th prime number. And in Hebrew, moon equals 218. So you don't always see words summing to the same thing in both languages, but you sometimes see a prime number connection through those ciphers. It's really fascinating.
By the way, I was sort of kind of incorrect. I should have said that the Day of the Dead actually ends November 2nd. It actually starts on October 31st.
Ah, well.
Oh, okay.
I think maybe there's your answer then. I mean, the sun at 218, death equals 218. It all traces back to astrology with these holidays, typically.
And we're not the only civilizations or cultures that observe them, obviously.
No,
No.
it'd be weird if we were.
Yeah.
The Mayans were like so locked into time. They would have it to where they can go backwards into time or into the future using cycle representation. So if like every day, whatever today is, today, right, won't happen again according to the Mayan cycles for 52 years. But it will repeat. Today will repeat.
Well, their entire culture is based on repetition of eras or repetition of time.
Cycles within cycles,
Yeah.
which is what we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Derek, what did you find out about the names I gave you? Anything?
Oh shoot, where I'm supposed to look in the chat here, aren't I?
No, and yeah, and
The
in
side
our
chat,
chat,
in the
the side
hangout, in
chat.
the Google Hangouts chat, like
I got
our
you.
side chat there.
I like
Yeah,
that I like that your name in Satanic Gematria, Robert John Morris equals 777.
Oh,
That's
seven
cool.
seven seven. Nice.
yeah.
Jesus, that's a Jesus thing, I think, because wasn't there a like Christian band in the past named 777?
Yeah, it's the word ascension in trigonal equals 777, and they often say 777 has something to do with enlightenment. There's this weird numeric riddles often between 666 and 777, and my interpretation of it is that 6 plus 6 plus 6 in numerology, you get 18, which reduces to 9. 9 being the number of man, and 9 is a number in numerology that kind of replicates itself. You know, any number multiplied by 9 reduces to 9. You add a 9 to any number, it's going to reduce to the same number it reduced to before. Well, if you add 7 plus 7 plus 7, you get 21. 2 plus 1 is 3, and 3 is a number of enlightenment in some numerology studies. So often, I think the 666 to 777 is like this a
And
path of
888.
consciousness, you know, going from base consciousness to enlightenment. But
Wow.
anyway,
Cube of Saturn. Cube of Saturn 777 in Jewish.
that's right. Numeric ritual 777. But what I remember from the last time you were on is that I think you said you were born on May 28th. Is that right?
That's right. 1974.
Okay, so your name, Robert John Morris, equals 217 in the alphabetic order.
Right.
The date May 28th leaves 217 days in the calendar.
Oh, wow. Huh.
So, like, you have a direct connection between your name and date there. And not everybody has it, but it's always interesting when someone does. It usually speaks to something deeper.
Okay, well, that's not my original full name. My original full name is down there as Robert John Kay, Kay. That was my actual birth name before my mother passed away. Now I also have my mother's name there as well, but I'd like to just kind of just for shits and giggles see what we find.
Well, the name Robert John Kay in reverse reduction equals 72. The name Bonita May Kay also sums to 72 in that same cipher.
Wow.
Now, you were born in 74.
Yeah.
Using the prime number cipher, Bonita May K equals 373, which is the 74th prime number. So it's interesting that she had a baby in the year 74 when her name is the 74th prime number in prime number cipher.
Wow.
Wow.
Jiminy Christmas. Shit.
54, 26. Let's see.
26, God number.
Yeah, your birth date reduces to 9 because you have 54, 36, 126, and 108 birth numerology. All of those numbers reduce to 9. Your name,
magic number.
Yeah, your name, Robert John K, sums to 63, 162, 72, 189. All of those numbers also reduce to 9.
Huh.
And 9 is the magic number.
Yeah,
anything
so
you multiply by it and do numerology, add up everything, it always equals 9.
and in extended gematria, your mom's name sums to 1089, which is 33 times 33. So you kind of got like a 3374 combo in your family. That's funny.
Wow.
Interesting. Like we were talking about the 3374 thing.
So
how they kind of just are around each other.
What date was your mom's birthday?
Ooh, I don't have an actual birth date. Not handy anyway.
Makes it tricky.
I do have her birth certificate
I don't remember my mom's
somewhere.
either.
But let me just see. She died at 22 in 1976, so that would have been 54 that she was born. The actual date that she was born, I don't have the actual date of
You know
the
the date
year.
that she passed?
The date that she passed, not the actual date, just the year.
Okay.
That's all I've got. Yeah,
Well, it's kind of like these things. These things I think are like coordinates. You
yeah,
know, if
her
you
information has
you
been
you have to
kind of
have
lost.
certain amount of information in order to
Yeah, yeah,
pinpoint the
yeah.
narrative
I've
or
only
the
got
riddle.
I've got her birth year and her her birth year and her death year. I don't have her birthday with me because it's on the long form of my birth certificate, which is not even nearby me. I actually have that stored in storage somewhere, so I don't have that anywhere with me.
You
And
know the name Bonita equals 38 in that reverse reduction method, and we were talking about how 38 is the number of death and cycles and whatnot. And it's just interesting. Like I've found too that people who die at a young age just happen to have that 38 number somewhere. It's
Also,
wow.
karma.
spooky. What's
Karma's
that?
38.
All
Karma.
right. So okay, so given the information about my name and my birth date, is
Bonita May
there
equals 163, the 38th prime, but that's interesting. Go on.
I was gonna ask, okay, is there some prediction you can make for when I might die?
Well, I'm not in that field right now. I don't know about all that.
all,
I don't
all
know.
of a sudden, all of a sudden, death people.
Yeah, like I don't want to say anything, and I don't know. There's so
How do
many
you
dates that
how
work.
do you figure those things out? Do you use like your like age as like a measurement tool?
I-
I
what
mean,
do you
not
mean?
personally. Like how like when you figure out other people's death trails, like we always work backwards, right? After the death occurs,
Yeah,
but then
that's kind of where I'm getting at.
it kind of reveals what was led to lead to that, if you will, if you work backwards, kind of like reverse engineering.
Well,
And then
actually,
if you
wait.
work back forward, then that would lead you to reveal the pattern of how you got there.
I think you need events. I think you need events to go on in order to determine that information, and it can only be reverse engineered. I don't think you can foresee things so much unless you have events to go on.
I'm kind of in that line of thinking when it comes to the organic numerology myself. I feel like just
Mm.
being aware of it might change something, you know?
Oh,
Right.
yeah, good
I
point.
think where we could maybe make predictions is with these media rituals. So this rapper who they say died, you know, if I had a database and I plugged in the numbers of Jesus Christ saying, you know, give me some names that are this numbers, give me some people who are this many days away from their birthday. If we had some kind of like massive database with all the celebrities, musicians, actors, athletes, all that good stuff, along with their birth dates, their names, their nicknames, if we could at least pinpoint it down to say, like, okay, out of all the people in this database, this is the 5 or 10% of people that I think might die on this day. And if you can consistently make it so that the person that does die is in that 5 to 10% that you predicted, okay, now you're making predictions. Now you're onto something. Because like
Well,
I
it
never
seems
heard of
to
this
me that
XXX Tentacion
when
rapper
people
before this.
die on certain dates, it's reflective off of their age and their birth numerology, and
Right.
usually
That and
associated
then
with one of their names, if not all of their names.
yeah,
All
I mean
right.
their full name is always significant, like 100% of the time.
And it's usually birth name, right? Not like what they're called.
All right, guys.
Sometimes it's both.
I got one for you. I just put it in the side chat. Be William Henry Gates the third,
The
born
third.
October 28th, 1955. Yes, good old Bill Gates. Let's see what his says.
Okay. So Bill Gates, first of all, Bill Gates in reduction equals 33. I just want to throw that out there.
Okay.
In the reverse order, his
Of
name
course.
sums to 156, which is the gematria of 33.
33. Yeah.
In Jewish gematria, Bill
Also
Gates equals
9/11.
254, and 254 is super significant. The word time equals 254 in extended gematria, and September 11th is the 254th day of the year. So he's definitely coded. His full name.
Yeah, and then also 156 is 9/11. That's the, I mean,
Right.
the 156th time.
That's right. So he's
number
got
of
two 9/11
9/11.
connections in his name. I didn't think
Yeah.
about that.
Wow.
His full name, William Henry Gates III, equals 111 in reduction. Let's see. Henry Gates. He's born on a date with 93 numerology. That's a Saturn number, 10 plus 28 plus 55.
Yeah, because Saturn equals 93 in what, ordinal?
Right. So what would be useful here is like a significant date in Bill Gates's career, right? So I know he resign from Microsoft at some point.
He hit
Okay.
33 years. He was in it for 33 years and then resigned. It's like all part of this whole 33 code.
So do you know what date it was?
No, I'd have to look it up. It's in the Wikipedia, man.
It says 2014. But
It
that's
doesn't say
true.
the
Hey,
actual
so
date.
so Bill Gates equals 33. He was chairman of Microsoft for 33 years.
Yeah, see what I mean?
Yeah.
So then, okay, well, why 33 for the audience?
Well, to me, as I kind of touched on, 33 is this stamp of Masonic activity or secret society involvement.
Like
30
a brand, right?
a little bit. Yeah, I mean 33, this number is significant. Again, it goes back to the human body, I believe. You have the 33 vertebrae in our back, the 33 degrees of Freemasonry representing the path of enlightenment up the Kundalini of the spine. The Scottish Rite Freemasonic Temple in Washington, D.C. has 33 columns that are all 33 feet tall. And again, it's the highest degree of Scottish Rite Freemasonry. Masonry equals 33 in reduction. So does police. So does secrecy. Of course, the police,
Federal.
federal also. The police, a heavily Masonic network. And it's predominantly Masonry that's using this language of letters and numbers in Gematria.
So you can almost say that they're basically, when you decode Bill Gates, it's basically telling us that he's a Freemason.
I believe so too. Yeah, I mean, you look at the name, like I said, Bill Gates, and I'm looking at what I consider to be the 6 base ciphers, basically, which is the 4 base, the ordinal and reduction, and then also Jewish gematria and English extended. So for him to not just have the 33, but also the 156 and the 254, it seems like that's an intentionally coded name right off the bat because of the 9/11 connections, the connection between 33 and 666, which both have the same gematria.
Oh, and internet equals 666. So does computer.
Right. Okay. Good point. So Bill Gates summing to 156 in the reverse order is significant because 666 equals 156 ordinal. So does triple sixes, 156. And in a Sumerian gematria, which is the alphabetic order times 6, the words computer sums to 666. And in reverse Sumerian, internet equals 666. And if you look up one of the first computers ever sold by, I think it was Apple at the time, it was sold for exactly $666. So, that's
Those
anytime
are
you
really
see
good examples, I think.
anytime you see 666 somewhere, there's usually some kind of riddle behind it. In fact, there's probably always some sort of riddle behind it.
Always. It seems like that's the main number that pops up. Like, I mean, aside from 33, 47, 74, 26, 666 seems to be the main coded within it kind of thing, like back and forth. You can do the 6, like the words 666. You can do 3 sixes. Each whatever you put out there that's associated with the 3 sixes, it seems to have some sort of code in it.
Right.
I just went and popped in the word Windows into the Gematrinator. I got the English ordinal of 107.
Sports number.
Full reduction is 35.
Also God number, take out the 0. 135?
Sorry?
Is that what you said? 135?
No, I said 35.
No, just 35.
Mhm.
That makes me think of Catholic.
Single reduction is 44.
It's weird. Do you have this happen, Derek, when numbers pop out or whatever you're decoding, or maybe you're not decoding, maybe you're just watching something and it gives you a number? Does it like all of a sudden pop in your mind like relations? Like, for instance, he said 35 and relations popped out Catholic and JFK, you know what I mean? Being the 35th
Yeah.
president.
No,
It's like
certainly.
that
I
stuff
mean, I see 35
weird.
and I think like, oh, 149 because that's the prime number relationship. I think of certain things like that too. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's so weird. And then like 38, you all of a sudden think death.
Most definitely now. Another thing that's funny too is like, you know, di-
Blue screen of death.
we talk about the organic side mixed in with the occultic numerology. Well, so if you look at Bill Gates's birthday, he was born on a date with a life lesson number of 58. 10 plus 28 plus 1 plus 9 plus 5 plus 5 equals 58.
That makes me think of Freemason.
If you reduce all the digits, he has a birth numerology of 31. And in Gematria, his wife's name, Melinda, equals 58 and 31 reduced. So, like, is it a conspiracy that he's married to Melinda Gates? You know what I mean? I
And
don't
31's
believe
a prime,
so.
right?
What's that?
31's a prime, isn't it?
It's the 11th prime, yeah.
11th, okay.
And I mentioned how Bill has 93 numerology. Well, if you add the gematria, Bill plus Melinda, Bill equals 35, Melinda equals 58, it equals 93. So we're all carrying these numbers with us, I feel, and there's this
Yeah.
vibrational pattern that goes with us.
I think we all have a feeling.
Yeah, like
We're all attached to certain numbers that have some significance. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and
oh yeah, go
know,
on about 42 for
and
him
40
about Hitchhiker's Guide.
42
That, very
42
interesting.
is a number like out of comedy's sake. 42 is just very significant to him because it always just seemed to pop up. So he decided to feature it as a main point of nothing in his shows.
Yeah,
I mean, Douglas Adams was like very clear to say that it really had no importance. However, it's just he picked that number because it showed up all the time in his life.
yeah. I believe that too. Like, it's not like he knew exactly what it meant. It could just be that he picked up on the fact that 42 is everywhere. And if you just pay attention to the numbers, you'll realize certain numbers you'll see more often than others. It's just how it is. And 42 is definitely one of them.
Definitely. And that also equals like Freemason or something. One
In
of those
chat,
Freemasonry. I can't remember which one.
sorry, Steve. In chat, we got Blues Girl 65 who's asking, so what's your take on the 11.11?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting one. I think a lot of people call 1111 their wake up number. Like when they start thinking about numbers and seeing certain numbers, that's often the one that seems to pop up most often. As an organic gematria thing here, my name Derek Takuri in trigonal gematria equals 1111, and the radio show that I help host, the Gematria Effect, also sums to 1111, which is kind of weird. I like to think I'm waking people up, and maybe the numbers show that. But
I like to agree with that.
all right on. So, well, on November 11th at 1111, back in the year 1918, is when World War I ended. And you wonder,
Armistice Day.
Yeah, I mean, what's the purpose of doing that to make it so obvious? Like, to me, that's a pretty significant sign that the war, to some extent, is staged, and that there's an agreement on when they're going to end. It didn't just naturally end at 11:11 on 11:11, did it? Maybe. I mean, but I don't think that's what when it comes to these wars. I mean, we're fighting bankers' battles. And,
well, that's just it. And these bankers' battles, I mean, let's face it, from what we know or what we think anyway, or what we have reason to believe, is the fact that these people have an entirely different philosophy on what life is worth, what life is, and how they control it. I mean, we only see the bottom part of a much bigger thing. I mean, we're kind of looking at it like if it were all made of glass, we're looking at it from down here, looking up through to see if we can see the top. But they're at the top looking down with binoculars, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Right.
good analogy.
I noticed you sent me Al Gore's information too.
I sure did. Let's just have fun with that one too. Let's see what's going on there.
So Albert Arnold Gore Jr. He's got funny numbers in extended and satanic gematria. His name sums to 825 in both ciphers. We call that double gematria. It's not terribly common, but it's interesting. He was born March 31st, 48. In Jewish gematria, again, which I say might be the most significant cipher, his name sums to 1,225. And this number sticks out because Freemasonry equals 1225 in trigonal. Also, I think it's ancient accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, or just Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. Yep. In reverse, Satanic Gematria, Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, also 1225. So you see that as a number stamped on their agent.
See, now what are the odds of that? That's like a crazy number. It's not even one of those ones that show up over and over again. It's very strategically aligned. So it's clear that is a statistical thing.
Right.
When you get those types of numbers.
Exactly. And there's a couple more like that too when it comes to masonry, but to me that 1225 like always just sticks out right away. And he also has 111 reverse reduction gematria, just like William Henry Gates III. And I don't talk a whole lot about 111, but there's definitely something to that number because in the alphabetic order, we have something called Sumerian gematria, which multiplies everything by 6. And 111 times 6 is 666. So to me, the 111, even in reduction, is kind of like a backhanded 666,
New York is like that. It equals 111 in ordinal and 666 in Sumerian.
Right. Okay, so Albert Gore, born March 31st, 19... Pee Wee Herman. All right, let's start with this.
That one next.
I've cosplayed him too.
Al Gore. Just the name Al Gore equals 31 and 58. 58, also the gematria of Freemasonry in reduction.
There it is.
So, again, like when I do these decodes, I'm looking for multiple matches to Freemasonry. That 1225, it's okay, but you want more. And just the fact that Al Gore equals 58 ordinal, Freemasonry equals 58 reduction, it's just another layer to the coding,
And to reiterate, it's not like we can make these things, these numbers. They pop out because that's what the math equals.
Exactly.
A lot of people think that we just can make it be that way and we set it up ahead of time before we decide to break it down, and then we break it down live, and then we're showing that we just already did that. That's not the way it's done.
That's why I said in the beginning of the show.
I don't even think you can do it that way.
That's why I said in the beginning of the show, like we as a culture already had the numbers to represent a value. And these values are now represented by the dates and things that they apply to rather. So we're not cherry picking to create these dates and relationships. It's just the math.
Yeah, exactly.
I think you're having some, I think your microphone's just a little bit, you might have, Derek.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Just check your plug on your microphone. Just give it a little wiggle.
Is that good? Is that better?
It's just sounding a little staticky, kind of like the connection's kind of getting a little wonky.
All right, let me.
You sound fine from my end.
Is it? Because yeah, I mean the audio looks like it's going through well on mine. In fact, my levels are a little high now.
Might just be my headphones. I mean, shit. I've been having.
Yeah, it's probably your headphones. Am I coming through all right?
Everybody seems to be coming through all right.
Okay.
All right. Well, I'm gonna carry on then.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll keep going.
Yeah. So, I guess I'll mention this. I was looking at you mentioned your mom passed away at a pretty young age, 22, and just yesterday I was looking back at a young death in my family, and it's a really sad story. I have 3 brothers who are actually half brothers on my mom's side. They have a half brother on their dad's side, and he was involved in a tragic incident with his daughter back in 2004. They took their daughter wasn't even a month old, and they took her to Summerfest. And I guess at the event, maybe the baby got bumped or something, and they ended up realizing like she wasn't behaving well. She had blood from her nose. They rushed her to the medical tent, and the baby ended up dying at a hospital that day. It was really sad. Like I said, she was only 27 days old, and the whole thing was just really tragic. Well, I'm looking in Gematria here, and I see that her name was Carly Ray Mayashiba being my brother's name. And in reduction, Carly Ray equals 38, which is that number that I mentioned your mom also sums to in reverse.
Right.
Also, the name Mayashiba equals 38 in reduction. So she has this double 38 there. And this was a big story actually in this city at the time because it happened at a big music festival. And in reduction gematria, Summerfest equals 40 and 58 with the S exception. That's where the S is worth 10 instead of 1 because 1 plus 9 equals 10. It's only reduced once. And the date that the baby died on also had 40 and 58 numerology as well. So, it's strange that Summerfest was in the news on a date that had matching numerology with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then something else that I thought of, I was like, well, this seems to be how this works, right? Like I've seen a bunch of Dan Barron's videos where he connects things that happen on television and in sports to his real life. And it's really interesting stuff. Like the fact that his grandma died on Eagle Lane right after the Eagles won the Super Bowl. And then his uncle, who was a longtime Cubs fan, dying right after the Cubs won the World Series. All this stuff happens by the number.
I don't know how he follows all that. It's like so much things.
Dan's a wizard.
And I know he's able to, and something's helping him out too. It's clear that's happening.
Dan is on this amazing path, and it's like I'm so glad that he's got a channel to share that stuff with because I don't know how much of what we've seen.
I don't know how to document that information. I'd like to document a lot of that information, but he's so widespread. It's hard for me to pinpoint it. But at some point, I'm going to try.
It's tough to follow. So I just thought, man, this is okay. So Carly Ray Mayashiba. I'm like, there's a celebrity named Carly Ray Jepsen, right? And that's like the only thing I can think of, but that's the one that's most heavily planted in our shared consciousness, right?
Right.
I mean, maybe not everyone's heard of her or whatever. She had a really bad song a few years ago. So anyway, I just thought, okay, well, let's type in Carly Ray Jepsen. And what I found is that in Jewish gematria, her name sums to 1390, which is a lot like 139. And Summerfest equals 139 ordinal. And then I measured between Carly Ray Mayashiba's birthday and Carly Ray Jepsen's birthday. And I was like, all right, am I going to see any blood sacrifice numbers here? And I found that their birthdays were exactly 6,767 days apart. And in reduction, blood sacrifice and human sacrifice equals 67. But it's just a number that I always document being significant to death. It's the 19th prime number, 19 years in the metonic cycle of the moon. Like, this is a significant number.
Also, 139 is the 34th prime, which is, relations to murder.
Right. And let me figure out that date again. It was 2004, 8.
Because that's how you use the prime relation.
And it was a date with 38 numerology. It had double numerology of 38, and her name was 3838. So anyway, I mean, like, what are the odds? Like, I'm thinking, like, is there going to be a blood sacrifice number, something that I would make a video about and point at? And it was 6767, the number that I document all the freaking time.
That always makes me think of Prince because of him dying 67 days after Vanity.
Yeah, that was a big one too. Man, and that's the kind of stuff that spooks me out when I do this. But like I was doing my family's numerology, like I mentioned, and my nephew's mom's name, Renee Mayashiba, sums to 130 alphabetic order, and she was exactly 1,313 weeks old when her second son was born, and his name sums to the 13th Fibonacci number in ordinal, 233.
Hmm.
And it was the kind of stuff where I just got goosebumps. I was like, I got to stand up and walk away because this is like too freaking freaky, man. And
Wow.
I told my brother, I was like, I'm going to bring my computer over and we're going to talk about this tomorrow. And then I was about to leave the house. I'm like, I'm leaving my computer here. I don't even want to talk about this. It's too weird.
Screw the presentation. It's over. It's done.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like basically like there's something going on underneath this layer of reality. It's happening by a code, and I have all the proof you need. Just let me know if you want to see it.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
Jeez.
exactly. And if you need to fact check, then you can go to my thing because
Right.
I got all of the fact, like the things that he's found and Zach's found, and basically have them documented, so it could be refuted. I mean, not refuted.
Yeah.
Did I say that right? Yeah.
It could be confirmed, or at
Yeah,
least
exactly.
or
Exactly.
accessed.
From a scientific perspective.
So I just want to say, you got about 5 minutes left, I guess. There, eh, Derek?
Yeah, I got to worry about hitting the sack in a little bit, but
Yeah.
no,
Well,
no tight time schedule.
yeah, no worries. I was just gonna say, okay, just to kind of bring it back down to a very slow outro. Um, let's each take turns. How do people find you there, Derek?
Well, the best way is to just bookmark my website. That's gematrinator.com, and I'll spell it out. It's Gematrinator. And I've been deleted by YouTube for sharing this information in the past for bullying and harassing people.
Oh,
And so that's a good place to bookmark
it's
because
it's hilarious that they got you on that because you never did any of that. As
you
a
know.
viewer, I was like, what?
Well,
When that happened.
I guess what really tipped him over the edge is what I did in that because I made a video on the Stoneman Douglas shooting, but I waited a few days. I thought it would be okay. But what I did is I put like, the governor, the mayor, the shooter, the Cubs. I had all these topics I was going to cover, and I had 6 of them. So I put them all on each end of the Star of David, and then I would like zoom in on one and then fade out the others. I was like,
It's
they probably thought that was
creative.
a little too much.
That's creative.
Well, it was. And you know what? Hey, I mean, it's not all Jews that are behind this conspiracy, but you look at Parkland and it was a heavily Jewish community. They had the first ever Jewish sheriff in the history of Florida who presides over that area. I
wow.
mean, when you really dig deep, it's clear to see uh, what, at least who these people are affiliating themselves with. I don't call them Jews because they're not Jews. They're not practicing Jews. They're not the real blood Jews. They're hiding behind this, and they would love for someone like me to come out here and call everyone a kike and a long nosed Jew hate. That's what they want because they want to create this reason to shut our voices down. In essence,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
by creating the semblance of divide, and that's one of
Yeah.
that's one of their dividing tactics,
I
anyways.
just call them the cult because that's exactly what they are. They are a cult.
yes, the dark occult,
Yeah.
practicing the dark arts.
It goes hand in hand with the Satanists. They're all part of a dark association. We'll just go there and just call it the dark
Saturn
association.
worshippers. They love Saturn.
The word satanic equals 67 also. We were just talking about that number.
Oh, interesting. Huh.
If
Wow.
you get time, Derek, do my name and birth numerology. I put it on the side for you.
Sure, yeah, I'll touch on that in a second. Just to finish off,
Yeah. Are you on Twitter, Facebook, anywhere else?
I'm on Twitter at Gematrinator. I'm on Facebook as my real name. A lot of people try to add me and I ignore them. I have 2 YouTube channels. One is Gematrinator_85. The other is my real name, Derek Tikori. And everything's linked from my website. So if you go to the media tab at the very top of the site, you'll get a little drop down menu, and you can find all my past podcasts. I'll be picking the podcasts up again this week. I'm not going to do them every week from now on, but I'll still keep on them once in a while. I had a Twitch channel, but Twitch doesn't save my videos, so I kind of stopped that.
Right.
Oh, okay. I was wondering what happened with
Well,
that.
I'll be sure, Derek. I'll be sure to throw that stuff into the description below on
Sure.
this video. Once it goes live, I'll go and update it. I'll use the information from your website, and I'll make sure I put that there for you.
Right on. Excellent.
And well, Conspiracy.
Yeah,
Uh,
I just want to
AKA. Oh,
quickly,
go ahead.
yeah, real quick. He threw me his name, Keith Arlen Wise,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
actually,
yes.
in the alphabetic order, Keith Wise equals 109. His birthday 7 plus 24 plus 78 equals
Death number.
109.
Oh,
Um,
I didn't
also,
catch that one. That's interesting.
also, your name is 46 in reduction. You were born 7 plus 24 plus 7 plus 8 equals 46. So you have a couple of connections directly between your name and your date of birth, which is
Wow.
always fun.
I only caught the 38. I didn't even, and the 109. I didn't even catch that connection. That's awesome. I'm gonna have to look at that and then put it in a separate section under my own personal decode.
Sure. There's
Wow.
2,507 days between our birthdays. 257 the
Oh,
55th prime.
227. There's a pi relation.
Yep. 55 is a big number of numerology. Numerology equals 55. 55 is a lot like 144 in that it's the 10th Fibonacci number and it's the 10th triangular number.
Hmm.
Hey,
So,
side note, did you ever realize that 54 and 45 are the same, but then also all of the 50s and all of the 40s? Like I did all of those, and I found out they're literally the same cipher, forward and backwards.
yeah, it's because 50
Um,
and 40 have the same numbers, basically.
but
30 and
I'm talking about
24.
50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, and also 40, 41, 42, 43, all the way up to 49.
Well, yeah.
Their ciphers are exact.
Well, right, because 40 and 50 both sum to the same, 30 and 24 in reduction. So you have that connection. It's just interesting when you type out 45, you get
And 54,
54
yeah,
and
and it's the same
45. And
thing.
when you type out 54, you get 54 and 45.
It's
um,
so weird.
yeah, that's one of those things that I find to be like, intentional geometric relations within the language there. The word geometry, sums to 108 forwards
Mm.
and backwards. They call
Oh,
Saturn the
throw that
devourer.
one out
Devourer has
about
symmetric
the
geometry also.
distances between with the 108 and then the relation to baseball.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, I mean, so in both the forwards and reverse orders, full moon equals 108. And they say that the moon is 108 times its width from the earth. They also say that about the sun, and the sun is 108 times the width of the earth. And then
Right.
a baseball has 108 double stitches. You have the 108-year Chicago Cubs curse.
Yep.
Of course, 108, big number in Chicago. 108 stories at the Willis Tower. So that whole Cubs thing, man, like I don't know how they're doing it with sports. I have no idea.
I don't know. Well, I don't really follow the sports thing, but I mean, because I'm not a sports person, but I clearly can see that it's the same numbers whenever I come across sports or I come across sports decodes. I mean,
Well,
literally
there's a
same
correlation
style.
between whoever is controlling maybe controlling is the wrong word to use, but whoever's involved and organizing sports is also organizing or working with people organizing Hollywood,
Right.
organizing music.
It's the same
It's
group.
we're looking at the
Yeah, it's the
same
Freemasons. We were just
entities.
talking about the Freemasons there, because they're the ones that own it. They don't say they don't. Like, I mean, go look it up.
It's the
It's
33
out it.
gang.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Or
And
in Disneyland, Club 33.
Wow. Hmm.
yeah, so I don't know what level of this is like, players actively rigging games and stuff, and what level of it might be a little bit of magic, implanting that 108 in everyone's minds. Does that then create the reality of a 108-year curse? I mean,
Right, like
Potentially.
that movie Focus about the 55.
Hmm.
yeah. I mean
Because
that could be
In
what we're
Focus, he actually like gets somebody to bet on the number 55 without saying it because he ended up paying all these other people around him before he got to that place in order to see 55 over and over again, and it'll be just in his conscious. So when he actually makes the bet, he uses that as the number.
Hmm.
And that could be what's going on. Like to us, we could be influenced by certain numbers subconsciously, and what happens to your subconscious? You act on it.
Well, hey, what's funny is that because of Douglas Adams and my you know, my affection for his writing, I always use 42 if I ever play Keno. I'm just
Exactly.
saying.
My whole thing was 37 when I started getting into this build because I noticed 37 being all over the place and being
Right.
formulated in front of me or whatever, but I didn't know why. Found out later that it's associated, it's obviously the 21st prime, and then, you know, the opposite 73, which is very deep into science, is the reverse. It's I'm sorry, the 12th prime, and then the reverse is the 21st prime, which is the 73.
Right.
So there's a correlation there with the mirror, you know, the mirror effect. And then also in comedy, apparently 37 is used like as a comedic number.
Right. Right. Absolutely. So, wow.
But I got it from Mothman Prophecies. I remember seeing the movie Mothman Prophecies, and in the movie, the woman dreams, and when she has that dream of her dying basically every night, like a reoccurring dream. And at the end of the dream, before she wakes up, she hears "Wake up, number 37."
Yes, that's right too.
And
I
that's
remember
not in the book
we
because I read
talked
the book.
about
It's
this.
not in the
Yeah.
book.
Yeah, we talked about this a few weeks back. Um, listen, I want to switch gears here just a little bit. Derek, so now we've gone through all the different ways to get in touch with you. I will make sure that everything goes down into the description below for people to get in touch with you and your material as well as your calculator.
Yeah, and I have his calculator up on the taskbar if you ever go to my blog as well.
Well, this is where we're coming next here, there, bud. Wisecraft, good friend, Conspiracy. I won't call you Steve this time, but
Okay.
my good friend Fear Porn Propaganda. Tell people how to get a hold of you, where to get a hold of you, and how to goes about it.
Okay, so my email is like wisecraft@gmail.com with a K. So WISEKRAFT @gmail.com. I have a couple channels. There's the Fear Porn Propaganda channel, and there's the Kons Piracy channel. I got the blog thing, which is the database, Gematria database for everyone to use if they like to, for whatever reason, whatever they want to use it for. It's KON5PIRACY.blogspot.com, and that's about it, I think. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Does anybody have any things to say in closing? We'll start off with you, Derek.
Yeah, just before we sign off, I just want to expand on the organic numerology of this broadcast, for instance. You know, I
Okay.
found it interesting that when I was on my buddy's podcast, he had a podcast called Make Me a Fan, right? And so he had me on to talk about Gematria, and it was the 33rd episode. And when you write out 33, it sums to 1,444 in trigonal. That's how many days were between me and my friend's birthday who hosted the podcast.
Oh,
So we were like, what the
There's,
hell? You know, this
that's
is
the
just how it
time
works.
number.
Well, let's talk
That's
about tonight then.
weird.
So I mentioned
yeah.
how, well, let's start over. So Keith Wise, your name sums to 55 in single reduction. And again, the 55th prime number, 257, there's 2,507 days between our birthdays. And then today's date, 7 plus 10 plus 20 plus 18 equals 55. And numerology equals 55.
Whoa.
Here we are talking about numbers on this broadcast. So, I mean, this is just how it works. Like, there's no question about it. There's always something to discover there. And you can call it playing with numbers, but it's always so easy. Like, I don't know how to
It's just
explain it.
there for you. It's just a matter of using the tools.
But if it
Right.
was like
If
a
you,
day
if you
later,
don't use the tools, you can't see it. It's
yeah,
like you're
if it
not
was a
putting on
day
the glasses.
later, it wouldn't add up to the same thing now, would it?
That's
No,
right,
there's
and
no
that's the
55s,
statistical
no
element.
46s.
Yeah, it has to be on whatever, when it happens, it has to be then, because that's the way it equals
Because
out that way, like an
we
equation.
originally shot to do this last night. This was originally supposed to happen, everybody, yesterday on Monday.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's very interesting, because that since it didn't, it ended up happening now, and we have those numbers to reflect off of that.
So bizarre.
If we did it yesterday, we would have had different numbers.
Yeah. And that's because I was mildly heat stroked from working in the sun on a roof all
And
day.
and those numbers probably wouldn't have matched with my name. You know what I'm saying? Like it seems that it only happened because it's now.
Yeah.
It's the now.
You know, people are gonna say that. Oh, we set this up.
Oh yeah, of course they are. They're I don't know
Someone
how we
somewhere
would do
will.
that.
But what you realize when you're trying to spread this information, like I have for a year and a half now, you realize that there's just some people who have their minds open, have their eyes open, and are accepting of it, and then there's some people who just flat out don't. And a part of me wonders if they're just not, again, it feels demeaning to call people programs, but we obviously all have some numerical component to us. So are these people just not programmed to wake up in this reality? Are they programmed to live out something else where they're I don't
and
know,
then
but it
we
doesn't
are
feel like
programmed to
everybody
wake
can
up.
really. What's that?
I said, and then so the adverse is we are programmed to wake up. Us, the ones that are.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I don't like saying it. But I mean,
I know.
it's just like
Weird.
Well,
it just feels like we're all on slightly different wavelengths. And in the Kabbalah, they believe in reincarnation. And are we older souls than some of these other ones? You know what I mean? I think about that
Well,
a lot too.
people always have called me an old soul, so I've
Yeah.
agreed with that term.
I was the little old man when I was 5 years old. I would like stand out with my hands on my hips, watching a sunset, and like, oh, this is pretty. My parents were like, what kind of kid does this? Like,
I was referred to once as friend of the folk by a little hippie commune out in
nice.
Ontario once. And,
so we've all
Nice.
had that experience growing up, even where it's
Yeah.
been
Yeah.
like we've been recognized as older souls, and here we are trying to wake up to our reality and understand it a little more. So I think there's something to it for sure.
There most definitely is. Anyway, I'd like to wish everybody a great evening. Thank you for coming out with us tonight. You guys don't leave so quick. We'll talk after the show as well briefly before we both sign out, or all three of us sign out. You both, I sign out.
Sounds good. It's
my
11:11, so now's a good time.
Hey, there we are. Yeah, no, I've had a great
9/11
time.
here.
Oh yeah. We're in a Pacific time, eh? But no, I really want to thank everybody for coming out and listening to our show and at least giving this a shot. We will post links to everything that we've talked about tonight. And yeah, much love. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. And peace.
Peace.